Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Today I'm going to bring you in on some inside, behind the scenes painting of my down ATST. I'm going to show you my process on how I'm going to deal with this, how I'm sorting it out. I have pulled one of my two built ATSTs to get some guidance on the colors that I use. This is something I did probably a month and a half ago. So I did my black base coat. We're going to go in with some neutral gray. Then we're going to bring it up. Once that dries, we're going to dry brush with some light gray. And then we'll do a little light dry brushing with some basically bolt gun metal, natural steel. So let's go ahead and go in with this. She's a little watery still. Let's break out a sinker here. Here's my sinker. Sinker! So I'm about ready to order some more of that. Getting a little low. I have to get on Amazon.com here and get that ordered. I'm also going to go in with my fancy little tool. Oops. My fancy little tool, aka a screwdriver for eyeglasses, and make sure that's cleared out, which it seems to be fairly good. And let's try this again. Well, if I'm out of this paint, I'm not going to be happy with myself. Yeah, I don't think I have any more left in there, guys. And I didn't order new. That's unusual for me. So, hey, uncut, unedited. Well, it'd be kind of edited. But hey, nothing in there. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this light gray. Shake him up. I'm going to go in with some dark gray. Dark gray. And we're going to make a medium gray. And I'll have to get on Amazon here and get some paints. So let's start with some dark gray. We're going to go 50-50. So there's my dark gray. Like no paint's coming out. And we're going with some light gray. Well, I did use a lot of that medium gray on my two ATSTs. I thought there was still a little bit left on the bottom, but apparently not. So let's go in, we're gonna mix him up. Right? Remember, I'm gonna come in with a brown wash too. Yeah, that's gonna work nice. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of water in my eyedropper. 2, 3. That should be good. Don't want it to be too thick. Yeah, that's coming up nice. Right. Clean my fancy stir stick off here. Get one of my inexpensive Hobby Lobby brushes. Right. And we'll start in on this guy. Oh yeah, that's going to work nice. You don't have to be too thorough because I've got that nice dark black base coat. Right. So I don't have to go too crazy with it. We'd like to have a little contrast with the dark undertones to some degree. And the reason I don't use my airbrush on this part, because I really don't want to get any more on these areas where I'm going to be doing probably some sand with some grass, like I did on my original ATSTs. I kind of went for that kind of a swampy look, right? And like I said, this technique allows me to leave some of the black. Like, see how I'm doing there? I'm getting up under the railing some, but some of that black I'm leaving exposed. And I won't get like the slats, where the slats I should say, where I'm going to leave that black deep down in there, right? If I get a little bit of paint on this base, it's not a big deal, 'cause I'll just cover it up with some, I'll be brushing in some glue in those tight spots. And this will be a perfect example with all those components and things where we could just kind of a wettish dry brush, so to speak, kind of technique that we're using here. And there's his walker pad. We'll get that right. So it's going to work nice, and everything, pretty much everything dries darker, so you got to take that in consideration when you're doing paint mixes. And I just did a complete total ad lib for you musicians out there. Total ad lib. I just don't want your paint to be too heavy and hiding the details on the model. Right. Get that foot pad better. There's some little like bits and pieces of him that when he crashed and blew up, we'll go ahead and hit some of those, bring them out. There's like a piece of his body right there. And don't forget this underside here, we'll get up underneath there. Right. Yeah. Let's spin him around. There's another little bit right there. I was just using the side of my brush just to pick that out. Underside. More little bits, part of one of his legs over here. But this is going to be a nice terrain piece. I highly recommend it. You can use this for a multitude of different types of games. I guess if you're determined to have a separate one for like a snowboard, you could buy two of them and do one. I'm doing, like I said, with some sand, with some grass. I get a couple little trees. Kind of makes them a little versatile there. It's not going to be a huge issue, you know, using them on kind of any kind of board. But something that's on my list here in the next week or so is I'm going to go back to Joann Fabrics and get some black fleece for my X-Wing battles to put on the table. And I want to get some white fleece for doing winter battles, either World War II, I mean any genre you want. You can use it for saga, winter battles, right? So I've got the green, I've got the tan desert, and really all I need is picking up some black for space and white for winter battles. And I might, I'll get some specialty mats for doing like cities and towns where they've got the cobblestones with the roads and everything. Here we go to the back. These guys are easy to paint and detail, and they're fun, these ATSTs. What we do is get some get some that so-called were captured by the rebels and kind of put rebel markings on them, and then do an ATST battle. That would be cool. All right. Super cool. Alright, we got some more of these little crash components. There's another one. Richtiga. Okay. Boom. Yeah, I'm liking that. It's doing good. Go to the underside of this foot. Underside of that foot. Take a little spin here, spin him around. See how now he stands out from the black. It doesn't camo into it. A little bit too much paint on the palette, but that's okay. We're gonna go over some of the large areas again, towards the tops. Like so. Yeah. Digging that. Digging that. Alright guys, I'm gonna let that dry good. I'll rotate our paint palette there, and I'll bring you back for the light gray. Alright, let's go in with the light. I went to looking at this ATST. I think I just did a little sepia here and there. I didn't really do a widespread, quote-unquote, widespread wash issue. I think I was afraid of just getting things too dark, right? They still turned out great, I think. And then the feet and stuff I used, it's like almost like a mud. I used it's like a pigment. This is red oxide. It still just says medium rust. And then you mix this with water, like one of these, and I just brushed it on around his feet. I've got several of them. I got different effects. There's track rust. I use those with like tanks and things. I really like them. Vallejo makes a line of those Vallejo pigments. Now I got I think this is actually the one that I actually used on that. Burnt umber. I've got desert. A whole host of things that I can use. So the effect we're going for right now, guys, is you can kind of see this kind of like, it makes it look like a streaking, like, these have been transported all over the galaxy, right? They've just been, figure planets that have just got torrential downpours or, heavy winds, and over the years they've just gotten a lot of gunk on them. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is what I like to do with my dry brushing. Now with these dented in areas, I'll probably go in with some more sepia and get down on those nooks and crannies to make it look like, maybe it's been laying there for a few weeks and it's just getting a little rusty where the metal got all crunched. So I'm going to do just a little dab of this. I'm going to come over here and push it around, and I'm going to to do this. And I keep going over it and over it and making sure that I've got this all squished around. You can see the effect it's starting to give me. Pick up just a little bit more. And keep in mind, this is going to darken. I'm looking to just pick up the outer edges. Just to bring out the highlights, especially like you can see here around the hatch, which I left just a little bit open. Gives kind of a nice effect, but you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just kind of picking out all the high areas, and on the sides I kind of wanted to get that streaking effect. From the side here, I need to pick up a little bit more paint. In this front right here, I had some down the nose like this. Pulling it down, right, giving that kind of effect. Just a little bit more paint, and pick up this almost like a foot. Some of these parts. I get a little bit of paint around the edges. It's not gonna make a big deal when we go to. What we're going to do, part one is just the dry brushing effect or the painting effects, and part two will be the basing. Right. And I'll show you how I do my basing for something like this. See there? It's easy peasy, Japanesey. Paint. A little bit more paint. We'll tack this back section here. Pick up those vents. Underneath, sides. All right, like I said, it doesn't have to be super perfecto. I'm not going to get too anal about it. But you can see how it's picking up all those high spots, but yet it's giving you some weathering streaks. As I've chosen to not make this look like it's been sitting here for, years and it's all mucky and stuff. I want to, even if I wanted to, if I was just playing this guy and he got destroyed, I could just put this in its place if I wanted to, or I could make this an objective. I could just make it a piece of terrain that you can hide and shoot from, right? These aren't super expensive. I don't remember the total cost. I think it was maybe 30 bucks. So you could pick up several of these and model them in different ways. This would be something I would put possibly in a display case. I put some of the 28 mil or 30 mil figures around him to make like a scene, buildings and all those sorts of things. I'm going to start putting those in bins with the attached lids that fold shut. Put my duct tape label, you know, Star Wars 28 mil, maybe something like that. Put all that stuff together, and that's all going to get stored on a shelf out in the barn. Right, so I'm not getting a bunch of stuff piling up down here. So that kind of thing. About done with this aspect of the dry brush. And I'm going to let that dry really good. We'll come back in. I'm going to come back in with my natural steel dry brush. And then I'm going to come back in. We're going to do a little bit of sepia to show, you know, some grime, a little bit of dirt, while the walking tank was in operation at some point. All right, be back in just a little bit, guys. Okay, natural steel. And just a little bit. Let's see, I said I have two of these that I built, two of those walking ones, the non-damaged ones. I went in, I had too much once it dried, and I looked at it the next day, and I ended up going back and doing some more light grade dry brushing to cover some of the natural steel. I just use a tiny bit right now. Make sure this brush is good and dry. And I'm going to just pick that up, and I'm going to just lightly come in with this. I'm going to use just a little bit more. This is just showing us areas where the original paint on the vehicle had kind of worn through a little bit. Just little bits along the edges. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the feet because that's going to get mudded. A little bit more. I'd rather use too little when you're using this metal effects, as I learned when I was working on those walkers. Right? I mean, it's easy to go overboard with this. Just a little bit. Try it along the edges, along the joints, like places where they would be walking in and out of the vehicle, climbing in and out of the vehicle. And, you know, ever since Empire Strikes Back, you know, I have freaking love these vehicles. Like around the fans. Little vents in the back. These guys that did the model kits and kit bashing for these, I mean, these guys were good. These guys were the pros. Pros. Alright, see, that's just enough. That's just enough. We don't need any more than that. I'm going to go in with my burnt umber. And you'll see what I do with this. I tap some in. It's like a powder. Put them to the side in case I need a little more. I'm going to go in with our eyedropper bottle, our eyedropper. I'll go in. Just take my brush, mix that together. because once this dries, it'll look like grime and dirt like on the feet on this. And then I came back in with some gloss to make it look like it's wet. I think it's been walking through a wet wilderness. So I'm going to cover everything, because when you're walking through mud, you don't get a little bit muddy, right? And when this dries, it'll dry a really nice texture, so to speak. It really does make it look like dried mud. And then, like I said, if you want to make it look wet, then you come in with a gloss. It's in range of me. I'll take an old brush. That's pigment, but I'll just take a clear gloss. You know, I may even use, and I'll show you real quick what I can use sometimes, is I think that is maybe what I used on this project. This is it says matte top coat, but it's really kind of got more of a gloss to it. So I've been using this in situations like this. And like kind of up and around where he fell. Into the surrounding stuff. And down here along the bottom a little bit. And see what I did was I used the sand, and then I used a brown wash, and you just drop the brown wash on and it just spreads out. And then I used some of that, it's another type of umber that I kind of sprinkled. You can see the lighter areas to make it kind of look like it's you know, a planet, some planet that's out in the universe somewhere, right? End up making it like this kind of color. Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find the other pigment that I used. You know, something like this. It was kind of a really bold color. This is called dark yellow ochre. And as the base was still wet, I went and just sprinkled a little bit on, which is what I'll do with this too. So they'll pretty much kind of all match and stuff. But you can kind of see the effect we're getting here. Just kind of going around along the edges. Right, kind of tie it all together like it had a heavy impact. And you can see it's kind of starting to see where when it dries, it will give you that dried mud effect. It looks, that doesn't look like paint, right? Should do it. I'll let that dry good, and we'll come back for the next part. We're getting closer to being done here. I'm going to do a little bit of the sepia, like I said, here and there, and she'll be ready for basing. All right, let's get back into this project. We're going to go in with this faux matte top coat to add a little bit of moisture. Go in with that. It's water soluble. I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to brush it on. So I'm going for the effect of this guy crashed within the last minutes to hours. I'm not really going for that effect that it's been ruined on a wasteland. And this stuff dries to the point where it has a slight gloss to it. It's like the perfect water effect. Right. And it's cheap. You can get that stuff on Amazon all day long. Right. And once we base this on part 2, guys, you can say it's either swampy or there was a lot of precipitation before the critter crashed. Ooh, that was a good one. Critter crashed. Alright, so we can lather this on, and once she dries, be the perfect effect. Now, we're going to go in with our sepia, and I got a standard small dry brush. Got my sepia. Right, you can buy these in the big bottles. I just don't have the sepia in the big bottle yet. Put out some sepia. Load up the brush. Now, I'm going to go in where that damage is. I'm going to get in there. Right. I'm going to get up on these joints a little bit. If anything, it just makes it look like, I'm not getting it all over the place, guys. I'm just getting it in the, kind of along the panel lines, up along where the joints are, maybe up along the top here. Kind of looks like a little bit of just, wear, like axle grease would. I guess a little bit of wear on the parts. Right. Up along this panel line. You use your finger to smear it. It's just weathering, guys. It's just weathering effects. Up here along the hatch. Up here along this. We want to make it look like it's still a combat veteran, but we don't want to make it look like it's so what I'm doing there, guys, I'm hitting those vents, and once this sepia dries, it's just really nice. It's almost a rust, wear, grime kind of thing going on. I got my sea breeze here. Cheers, guys. It's the day after Christmas. It's nice and peaceful. I've got multiple projects and video production things going on here. Toying with doing a video cast, like a podcast. So I've been researching some of that. Software, etc. that I'll need. I've got a Twitch account. I just feel like it's going to end up being too much time. It's hard enough staying on top of the YouTube videos. So I've about got everything I would want to do. Along this area, take my finger and I mush it around a little bit. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is essentially a terrain piece. Right. And clean the brush out. And I've put aside a little bit of black wash on our last bastion here. Just a little bit of black. little bit of black. There's all kinds of washes and inks to experiment. I'm not even scratching the surface yet. So I'm going to get up in these little areas where it's going to be kind of shady. Getting up in these little nooks, these little crannies, up along like areas like this. Give it some contrast. You don't want it to all be sepia. Get up in this little dent. Maybe get down to these little nooks and crannies. Go up in there, see? And then we got, go in with some more to give you some variation. These little vents and little areas here like that. Let's go a little bit more black, just a little bit more. And like where the visors are. Let's get up in there and get that nice and dark up in there. We don't want to see in there with that nice shading effect. And maybe up along here. Make it look a little grimy. Because when this dries, it's going to give you a really nice effect. It's like I've said in other videos in the past, guys. It's all part of your creativity, you know. This is where you can really tap into your, make this a creative outlet. There's no right or wrong way necessarily. A little color variation, a little streaking. Check that out. Streak, streak, streak. Now watch this. Do a little bit more. Now I noticed there's a little, we got all that gunk on there. So let's try to get some of that crap off of there. What a mess. Yeah, there you go. That's better. A little bit more. I think this ought to do it. Do some of that streaking. Some of that streaking effect. Alright. Right here on this back. Watch this. Boop, 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 boop. Streak, streak, streak. His leg right here. Watch this. Streak, 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 streak. Front of the face. Just right here. Streak, 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 streak. Look at that. Perfect. Really makes it look weathered. And that shine for the sepia will go away once this dries. Streak the hatch. Use up his last little bit. Alright, we're going to let this dry good, guys. And part 2 of this video series for the downed ATST. We'll come back and I'll show you my basing technique. Thanks for coming along for the ride today. Hit like, hit subscribe. Alan Smith Hobby and War Games Group. Facebook. Ciao.